I have a picture here.
Start video.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to worship with the First Parish in Lincoln. If you're here in person, and to all of our friends on Zoom. And we'll learn a little later in the service how many are joining us on Zoom. This community has roots that go back into the 1700s and most recently was joined in 1942 by the bringing together of the Congregational and the Unitarian churches in Lincoln. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you find yourself on life's journey today, know that you are truly welcome here. We invite our friends on Zoom to put your prayers in the chat, and James will bring those to us when it is time. And at the end of the service, as many of you know, there will be a very special announcement from our search committee. So we hope that you can stay for that. And now I would invite you to join in the opening words, if you would stand as you are willing and able, and let us begin our worship together. Come, let us enter into this space of hope and community.
Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion and compassion.
Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts.
Come into this space, present to the beloved companions who move beside us.
Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship. And I would invite you to remain standing and join in singing with masks on our hymn, We Worship Thee, God, in the Gray Hymnal, number 285.
And now would you join me in a spirit of prayer? Holy One, source of life and love, we give thanks for this church that has seen and embraced so much change, and for all those who have sustained this community of faith for many years past and for generations to come. We gather in hope and anticipation of the way that will be laid out before us. With joy as our companion and wisdom as our guide, we offer this, our worship, this morning. Amen. You may be seated. I invite you to join with me in saying the words of our covenant. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Our first reading this morning is from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 16 through 21. Thus says the holy breath of life, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings out chariot and horse, army and warrior. They lie down and they cannot rise. They are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise. Here ends the reading.
We come now to the time in our service, which we set aside for silent and spoken prayer. To prepare ourselves, remaining seated, we will sing hymn number 134 in the gray hymnal. Following the hymn, we'll take 2 minutes for silent prayer, meditation, and reflection, followed by a time for spoken prayers from the congregation. Actually, 134 in the gray hymnal, just so you And now, if anyone would like to share a prayer, please raise your hand and one of the ministers will bring you a microphone. We understand that the people on Zoom have a hard time hearing your prayers and they really would like to understand them. So hold the microphone like an ice cream cone.
Prayer of thanks for the minister and the search committee who have guided us through many hard months and lots of discernment and have arrived at this day.
We have a couple prayers from the chat. From Alice de Normandy, a prayer of excitement awaits today's news. And from Kathleen Huber, a prayer for my dear friend and her daughter, who has just been diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer.
Precious Spirit, may I rest for a moment, stay put for a moment or two. Please, I know there's still work to be done, but for just a few minutes, let me rest in you. You and the cardinal flash of red and clarion call goes through me and stops me to listen every time. You and the weather, whatever it brings. You, the ground under my feet. You, the breath in me that is sometimes deep and refreshing, sometimes never enough. You, these congregational voices joined in song and prayer. It's the loss and the unknown that's frightening. Maybe if I just don't move, everything will stay the same. What a big job it is, God, to keep on moving forward. In Mary Oliver's poem, the poet thinks about the donkey. When asked, he stepped forward. That was his job. He did it well. And that was a sad, sad day. Allow me to remember, Spirit, that rebirth, resurrection, and new growth come with death and loss. Every congregation that loses a beloved minister stands to gain another if they are planted in soil that has been prepared and is tended with love. Today and every day there is loss and gain. The river of loss and gain flows by us. It's only when we try to stop and hold on to the water that it becomes too much. We need to hold each other with love and let each other go. Then we can step forward bravely to whatever is next. Thank you, God, for this day, these people, this life. May it be so. And now, if you would like, please join me in the unison prayer. If I can find it. Give me the listening ear. I seek this day the disciplined mind, the disciplined heart, the disciplined life that makes my ear the focus of attention, through which I may become mindful of expressions of life foreign to my own. I seek the stimulation that lifts me out of old ruts and established habits, which keep me conscious of myself, my needs, my personal interests. Give me this day the eye that is willing to see the meaning of the ordinary, the familiar, the commonplace, the eye that is willing to see my own faults for what they are, the eye that is willing to see the likable qualities in those I may not like, the mistake in what I felt was correct, the strength in what I had labeled as weakness. At this time, will the ushers please come forward to receive this morning's offering? For those of you on Zoom, you can support FPL by mailing your contribution to the First Parish in Lincoln at Box 6218 or 14 Bedford Road, Lincoln, 01773. Dear Lord, we give thanks for both these gifts and the givers, and we ask that we may use these gifts wisely and well, both to nurture the life of this congregation and to further the goals of justice and peace throughout the world. Amen. Please be seated.
So our second reading's a little unusual. It's from another minister. Some of you know him, Reverend John Nichols. He was your interim some years ago. And it's a sermon I pull out every year because I just think I could try to say it better, but he kind of did. So this is what he says. It's about expectations for a new minister. Periodically, I go to the UUA website and I read the profiles from some other congregations who are also fishing for a new minister. The profiles I read are amazingly consistent in what they want. In a word, they want everything. They want a brilliant preacher, a person of solid intellect, passion, and commensurate speaking ability. But this person must be comfortable speaking to and satisfying a congregation of atheists, Christians, Buddhists, humanists, pagans, agnostics, and Jews, as well as those who have no use for religion but attend for the coffee. We miss that coffee, don't we? They want a dedicated and caring pastor who has solid administrative skills and great social media savvy. A spiritual guide with a deep personal spiritual practice who also understands fundraising and can help them increase their membership and their annual budget. They want a team builder who will also be able to resolve staff conflicts by getting every staff member to agree and get along most of the time. They want a harmonizer, a builder of community who is still able to lead in those new directions that will grow the church, but not at the expense of anyone who wants the minister's attention. They want a social activist who can represent the congregation in the community, but only on those issues around which everyone in the congregation already agrees. They want someone who absolutely adores little children and teenagers and retired folks. In fact, one congregation actually put it almost exactly that way. Of all the profiles I look at, all of the congregations want and believe they should have all of these qualities in the next minister. And I would add calm, centered, but not a workaholic, father or mother of 2 or 3 or 5, someone who can leap over buildings at a single bound, and oh yes, what about walking on the water? And this is the point, John Nichols says, at which we all nod sagely and reflect that we would never expect a minister to be all things to all people. Let's see the nodding, nod. And we have to expect that our minister can get only so many things done in a week. We do believe that, but do we really feel that way? When the next minister upsets us or the people we care about, do we, at that moment, really remind ourselves we were not looking for someone who would please everyone? Every congregation wants and believes they deserve to have something they imagine is the complete ministerial package. Some parishioners tell me, well, we had that complete package once in Reverend so-and-so, and we just want another Reverend so-and-so. Frequently, in many situations, John Nichols says, I knew Reverend so-and-so and strongly suspect that his or her memory has become idealized, even in a short passage of time since his or her departure. In short, the complete ministerial package is an illusion. It doesn't exist in anyone. What a congregation needs to do is determine where it most needs strength in a minister, find that person, and figure out how the congregation can fill in the rest. I'm about to do a new thing. Do you not perceive it? Says Isaiah. On Friday, I walked in the woods. It had rained earlier and the air was moist, almost misty. There was that smell of earth that you only get at this time of year. I am reminded, Thoreau wrote in the spring of 1852, I am reminded of spring by the quality of the air. It is a natural resurrection, an experience of immortality. And later that day, on the quiet walk with some of you at October Farm, we watched the river running high and full as it does this time of year. I love to see the trees up to their middles in water and how it makes a familiar landscape look so altered, water everywhere. I am doing a new thing. Spring, again, that's new, but I don't think that's the only new thing around here. Am I right? Katie, Sarah, search committee? Today, the search committee that you elected last spring will, after months of rigorous vetting and deep discernment, they'll tell you about the candidate that they've chosen to bring forward to be your next, for your consideration as your next minister. What an amazing day. You're going to get to go home and Google to your heart's content. And then in a few weeks, you get to meet the person in the flesh. And on Sunday, May 15th, you vote. In our free religious tradition, the minister is not appointed by a bishop or hired by a search committee, as excellent as that search committee may be. It is you, the congregation, who calls the person who will abide amongst you as your next minister. You trust the search committee, and so you should, and so do I. You chose a group that was representative of you, who could convey to candidates the breadth and depth of this community, so they could find someone to minister to you in all your fullness and diversity. And the candidate trusts the search committee too. Trust that they have accurately represented the character, theology, and vision of this congregation. And don't forget, candidates have other ways to learn about the congregation than just the search committee. They can Google too. And also because of the thorough work you did during transition and before, and the extensive documentation of that work, candidates were able to learn about you by reading all sorts of reports and documents that are right there on your website. You can go home and read them too. For example, the spirituality snapshot that gave a great sense of the theological diversity here, the different ideas you hold on Jesus, God, the covenant, and much more. The shared ministry review, or SMR, notes from strategic planning, the discussion after Manisha's YouTube video. There's a ton of stuff there that helps ministers get a sense of who you are and where you've been these last few years. You trust the search committee, and so does the candidate. But this is not a rubber stamp. We are fond of bragging about our democratic ways, how in our tradition, the people run things, not some church hierarchy. Well, if that is actually true, this is where the rubber meets the road. It's the congregation who calls, not 7 people. So that candidating week in May is for you, and it's for the candidate. To spend a little time together, rub shoulders, get a sense of one another's hearts and minds and souls. See if there's a synergy there, if it seems like you could build something together, if you could grow alongside one another over the long haul. You'll be checking the candidate out. And frankly, they'll be checking you out too. Does Lincoln seem like the place for me, a place that I could thrive in ministry and feel at home? Are these folks energized and engaged, willing to show up, put their shoulder to the wheel, come to church? Does this congregation have what it takes to join with me in ministry? Or is it one of those that says all the right things, but in the end really think that ministry just means the minister? Do they really get shared ministry, or is that just a buzzword? For me, Jenny, shared ministry means a partnership between minister and congregation. Your candidate knows that you've got a great job description for the minister. It's clear and crisp They're going to want to hear you tell them what you think the congregation's role is in creating a successful ministry. They're going to want to know if you have a job description for yourselves. Candidating week is a great time for all of these questions and conversations and much more. And in some ways, it might seem like a few days isn't very much time, but it's enough. Enough for that final discernment, the meeting of hearts and souls and minds, which has already occurred on the search committee, and now it comes to you. It's normal and natural for congregations to have high hopes for the future. The tricky part is when that gets pinned on one person. And I think John Nichols kind of humorously lays that all out. As he says, the complete package is an illusion. And I think that you free yourselves and you free the minister from the burden of having to be perfect when you really accept that that's true, that it is an illusion and that it's a joint thing that you're doing together, that one person doesn't have to be it all. Thank God, right? Who would ever want to be a minister? And the congregation doesn't have to do it all, but together, it's together. Today is a big day, and in the words of your Lenten booklet, it has been a long time in coming. I'm thinking of all that you, the congregation, have done to get to this place. I was remembering this week some of the conversations I had when I first arrived in August of 2018. I listened to people who were deeply grieving the departure of Manish, and I listened to people who were deeply relieved. I'll tell you, sometimes I went home at night with my head spinning with all that I'd heard and how different the perspectives were from one congregation about one person. Little by little, you got brave enough to speak, not just to me about what you were thinking and feeling, but to each other. And not to the people that you already knew agreed with you, but to the people who'd had a very different experience of your last minister. You started to consider points of view that were different from your own, sometimes sharply so. You tried to listen to each other, listen deeply. Little by little, you took the focus off of Manish and put it more on yourselves. Began to explore what your part might have been in the unraveling of that ministry partnership. Your leadership began to identify key issues they thought needed to be addressed here before calling a new minister, and you started to work on them. There was work on governance. Who gets to make what decisions here anyways? What does the parish committee get to decide? The minister, the deacons? Is there anything that a minister can decide on their own, or the parish committee on their own, or the deacons? You worked on communication. You acknowledged that conflict can be uncomfortable for you, and that sometimes important conversations here went underground. You tried to consider how to bring things out of the parking lot and into a more public forum when it was important to do so. How to get more comfortable when people had different opinions. Bulletin boards, rainbow chairs, announcements, banners, big things, small things. You considered the difference between a church where dissent is not just tolerated, but encouraged, healthy dissent, and a church where it doesn't always feel safe to speak up, to voice an opinion, or to take an initiative, where there's a worry that you might be questioned, criticized, or even blamed. And you said you wanted to change so this culture felt safer, not just for the minister, but for everyone. You started to try to identify things that you'd learned about yourself during Manish's tenure. What had gone well? And there were many things. And what might we do differently next time? When the YouTube video hit, you listened to Manish speak about his experience of living and working here. His experience of social exclusion in raising a mixed race family in a white upper class town. He used the word racism to describe what he had experienced. It was very difficult. There was anger and sadness Not everyone agreed. We came together and we talked. And if you want, you can read notes from that day. You can even look at the word picture that R.L. Smith created with all the different thoughts and feelings that were swirling around and what came to the surface. Some of your leaders initiated a racial justice journey that has been ambitious in scope and prodigious in depth. I haven't been able to go to as many as I would have liked, although I've gone to quite a few. But luckily, they're all recorded, and boy, have I learned a lot. I will be forever grateful to that and to you. You created an evaluation process for the new minister, and you tried it out on me, and I didn't melt into a puddle on the floor. You established a ministry advisory council, kind of a kitchen cabinet for strategic advice and wisdom for the new minister, and a place that you, the congregation, can bring your concerns. I've met with them every month, as will the new minister, or about every month. It's been a long road to get to this day. Thank you for engaging so fully in the interim process, even when it was uncomfortable. I remember one of you said kindly to me when I first arrived, or sort of almost first arrived, you know, we've already had an awful lot of small groups here, and you had, but you showed up for more, so many more. A lot has gone into getting here. And then, oh yes, COVID came along. It would take a whole nother sermon to say how you've hung in there for each other and for me and for the staff, and somehow helped us all stay connected and somehow sort of ferry us across the Great Divide. And it would take a whole other sermon to acknowledge what the search committee has done and the hours they've put in and the prayer and the thoughtfulness and the energy. What a gift they've given to you and to this congregation, to this community. Thank you for all that has been done to help prepare the ground for a healthy, long, settled ministry going forward. In getting to this day, I also have to acknowledge that it makes it more real to me that I will be leaving. And there is an inescapable sadness as I consider that parting. But we have months still to go to honor our connection, to celebrate and to grieve. And today is primarily to hear about who the search committee has selected. With you, I am curious to hear, I am grateful to them, and I'm eager to see what is coming to birth here. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Together, let us lean into trusting the process of change and moving with it. Let us open ourselves to this new thing, being born into your life and into mine. And let us sing together. Blessedly, we can do that now. What is our final hymn, Miranda? I don't have, here it is, yes. What are we singing? 283, The Spacious Firmament on High. And our closing words come from the Reverend Scott Taylor by Sarah Kay. They are based on the words of Martin Luther King. Faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. So go with faith, not the kind that is called to move mountains, but the quieter sort that calls us to take the first step, even when the whole staircase sits beyond our view. As we stride toward the unseen, may we notice that the way unfolds only as we risk walking it. May we remember and trust that none of these steps are ones we take alone. Amen.
Is it working now? Now we'll do an. Now we'll have announcements. First, the little ones, and then the big one at the end. So if anyone has an announcement, please raise your hand and one of us will come. Oh, from the microphone. Okay. So if you have an announcement, please come up to the front.
I don't have a small announcement and I don't have a big announcement, but I do have a medium-sized one, and it's very important. Alice de Normandy was going to offer this announcement this morning, but she is sadly stuck in Florida. Not sadly. Your outreach committee has chosen CARE and its Ukraine Crisis Humanitarian Fund for this year's Easter offering. It was not easy to choose an organization for FPL to support. There are so many worthy ones. We chose CARE because a First Parish Lincoln parishioner suggested it. 90% of its funds go to the program projects, and it has been in operation since the 1940s with a remarkable track record doing humanitarian work all over the world. But what seemed to separate CARE was its strong partnerships with local NGOs. For example, CARE's Ukraine Crisis Fund, where FPL's collected funds will go, collaborates with People in Need, a boots-on-the-ground European nonprofit providing urgently needed supplies of water, food, hygiene kits, and cash to innocent families, women, and girls, and the elderly, all of whom are likely to suffer the most by this crisis. People in Need also provides critical psychological support to this traumatized population, as well as toilets and heated tents. Collaboration increases CARE's reach and effectiveness. You have all seen the pictures, heard the news. Be as generous as you are able this Easter season of renewal and rebirth. Your dollars will be added to the support given when Jenny spoke of Ukraine a few weeks back. Kindly send your contribution to FPL Box 6218 or go on the website fpllincoln.org.
Good morning, Ruth Ann Hendrickson speaking for the stewardship team. This week, we would like to thank the following people for supporting stewardship and strengthening the fabric of this church so that we can continue to have our community and an outreach program that does good throughout the neighborhood and the world. We thank Abigail Adams and Rob Graves, Buzz Constable, Doug and Laura Crosby, Alice and Surendra de Normandy Shaw, Deanna and Edwin Elanima, the Elms family, Mary Gaylord, Ginny Wells and Dwight Gertz, Dennis Tapani Hall and John Hall, Emily and John Hazlitt, Steve and Ann Israel Leggett, Hannah Keevel, Marion Meenan, Margaret Olson, the Packenows, Barbara Slater, Gary and Susan Taylor, Mary Jo Veiling, Katie and Tom Walker, Wendy Harritz and Robert Walk Conan. Forgive me for all the mispronunciations. To date, all the members of the parish committee have pledged. Thank you. We have received support from 88 households. Thank you all. Yet there are still many we have not heard from. Please do go online to www.fpllincoln.org to donate and click on the pledge button. The campaign is halfway over already. Soon we'll be starting our budget and we need to know how much money we're going to have. Let's all lean in and show ourselves and our new minister just how strong this community is. We thank you.
Good morning. The parish committee has created a shared ministry team to provide support and structure for our congregation as we say goodbye to Jenny, define our role in creating a shared ministry, and welcome a new settled minister to First Parish.
The team includes Jane O'Rourke, Gina Halstead as co-chairs, as well as Gus Brown, Sarah Andresiak, Larry Buell, and Katie Hogue. We're very excited to wrap our arms around this idea, and we'll have much more to share soon, so stay tuned.
Big day, people. Well, I think I've got a couple of remarks and then we're just going to each speak. So we'll just take turns. We can all be up here. I don't know. Good morning. This is your search committee. And we're going to cozy up here. Thank you. Over the past year, the 7 of us have listened deeply to the needs of our congregation. We reviewed applications from dozens of UUA, UCC, and beyond ministers. We spent intensive weekends with several finalists. And today, humble and hopeful, we announce our unanimous selection for our next settled minister. Listen carefully. There's something a little unexpected. We enthusiastically recommend Reverend Kit Novotny and Reverend Nate Klug. A husband and wife co-pastoring team that will share the responsibilities of our next senior minister. We think that might be one way to get closer to that perfect package. Both Kit Novotny and Nate Klug are ordained in the UCC and have been pursuing separate ministries for almost a decade. They recently returned home to New England. They've bought a house in Concord with their 2 young daughters, and they have sought an opportunity to serve as co-pastors. They are eager to serve a multi-faith community. Lucky us. Lots more information will be shared in an email that'll come in your email box tomorrow. Happy waiting. In the meantime, the search committee will highlight some of the reasons that Reverend Kit Novotny and Reverend Nate Klug are our unanimous choice. First, I'll go first. We will have 2 distinct voices and personalities in the pulpit, providing leadership and providing pastoral care. One of our committee members remarked, quipped perhaps, if there was ever a congregation that needs 2 ministers, this is it.
So Nate and Kit will bring so many gifts, such a wide diversity of gifts. They're both deeply grounded in their faith and are on a spiritual journey.
Kit and Nate both have a very strong commitment to racial justice, and they really want to help us to bring our values to life.
Kit and Nate are great. They really are. They're warm, they're grounded in so many ways. They're, their comfort and confidence in themselves and in each other, and in the skills and talent and the experience that they bring to their ministry is something that I think will serve us in the community so well in the days ahead.
You can rest assured that this is a pair of very creative, articulate thinking people, solidly intellectual, to recycle John Nichols, but not a particle of stuffiness, spirited and fun.
Kit and Nate are eager to engage compassionately with our children of all ages, our young families, and our future members.
We became so intrigued with the idea of a co-ministry model and equally convinced that Kit and Nate are the ones to really build this ministry with us. And knowing that this is probably an area of curiosity for many of you, we're going to be having a short Q&A discussion after the service next week. So we can share with you our enthusiasm for this model and answer any questions you might have about it. You'll of course always also be able to ask Kit and Nate about that when you meet them during candidating week. So we hope you will all look for ways to engage in that process, which will be coming out soon. In the meantime, before you meet them, we ask that although you are welcome to Google them to your heart's delight, they are easily findable on the web, but that you not contact them in any way before we have a chance to meet them all. So thank you very much.
you.